how old were you the first time you ever went into the ocean?
Ocean?
Yeah, I was a kid. Like,
I think Mina went to the ocean like last year.
first time ever.
No.
I do not.
Mina doesn't do water.
I'm not a big fan of water.
I remember when I was a kid,
Really?
my dad took me. I was so afraid of the ocean because I used to think it could just like take you. You know, I used to think I would always just be sucked in by it.
I can.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Scarlet Sermons. We're in the Saints room for the second time. To start, my name is Anthony.
My name is Mark.
Amina.
George.
And today we are joined with a special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name's Tony.
Tony.
Tony!
Guys, clap it up. Clap it up for Tony, chat.
Thanks for
so
having
much,
me, guys.
Tony. Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on the podcast with us.
Yeah.
And please tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Tony Saad. I grew up in East Brunswick my entire life. I went to East Brunswick Church, St. Mary's East Brunswick. I was baptized here and went to Rutgers for undergrad. I'm currently at Rutgers NJMS for med school.
Nice.
And that's my story.
Awesome. And the topic that we have today is being Coptic in a non-Coptic society, right?
Yeah.
And Mina, if you have any questions to start the conversation.
So I think, Tony, the first question is, how do we approach being a Coptic Orthodox Christian in general?
So, I mean, obviously this is a big topic, and I think it's very difficult for me to be talking about this, especially after you guys had like a Buna band and all these really amazing guests. But I think it's very difficult for us specifically, me being like around your age, like just being a youth in a non-Coptic society. I think we really have to find a way to differentiate ourselves, because a lot of times we just end up conforming. We see everyone around us and we want to be like everyone around us because we think that's what's right. You know, it's difficult to feel like the minority or the people that you don't see that often are the ones that are doing it right. And unfortunately here in America, the minority of people are the ones who are following Christianity to the letter. I know it's been difficult for me. I know I was your servant, guys, so I know it's been difficult for you guys. But I think we just have to be able to actually find pride in where we come from. I think that's where it starts. So we kind of forget that we're Egyptian. Our entire families are from Egypt. And our entire lives, like everything that we are, came from there. You know, I actually recently did not recently, but a while ago, I did like one of those 23andMe tests.
No way.
Yeah. Have you guys ever done those?
No.
Never.
No.
I wanted to, but I was just going to say 99.9%.
So I was curious. I didn't know if I was going to be fully Egyptian. I was like, I don't know. I ended up doing it, and they had two different categories. They had Egyptian, and then they had Coptic Egyptian.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. And I was 0% Egyptian. I was 99.7% Coptic Egyptian.
What's the other 0.3?
It was like a peninsular Arab.
What?
And it was very broad. It said like somewhere in the like
Wilderness sheet or something.
like yeah. So
That's so funny.
So it talks about, it's like, how do they differentiate between the two? Apparently, like, we share the same DNA as non-Coptic, like Pharaonic Egyptians, like pre-Arab conquest, you know. And so I thought about that for a second. I was like, wow. So you're telling me my ancestors never left Egypt once? So my dad was the first one of all the years of my ancestral history to leave Egypt.
And you went deep, Tony.
You know, and
Deep, man.
I'm the first person outside of my entire like family ever. Actually, well, my brother. But my brother and I were the first ones to be born outside of Egypt. That's crazy. And so we kind of forget where we're from. And because you're sitting in like Western like society, you end up just like being like, oh, well, this is how everyone does things. It's like, I don't think anyone can, like, if you really knew where you came from and the people that, you know, like the reason that you're here, you know, the people that died so that you can be a Christian, I think we would treat our culture differently. So I know I kind of went everywhere, but I think really it comes down to having pride in who you are. Not in who you are like as a singular person, but where you come from.
I think, like, I agree with that completely, having pride of where you come from. But speaking, like, about myself, especially when I was younger, that was really, like, difficult for me. Seeing, like, how you said, seeing everyone around you and, like, for example, like, in school, everyone is doing something a certain way, like, they're, like, the American way. And then, like, from where you are, or, like, from Egypt and, like, how, like, your parents like taught you to do stuff, it's like completely different. So it's almost like I felt like ashamed that like I was like different, or like it was a bad thing to be different. So growing up obviously was hard, but then like now that I'm getting older and like seeing, like, it just doesn't really matter. Like that's like I should be proud of where I'm from.
Well, I think that's why it happens as you get older, where you start to have this pride, because it's very difficult when you're a kid. You see everyone around you, and you know, we're really lucky. Anyone who was raised in East Brunswick, like my graduating class had over 70 Egyptians.
Yeah, East Brunswick High School was like, it's like swarms.
Yeah,
so many Egyptians.
Raise your, like, who didn't? Were you guys all in East
We're all
Brunswick
EB,
schools?
all
EB schools.
But you're right. I know all the other schools, not as many. East Brunswick is like loaded.
Yeah, no one has that. No one really has that, and so it's very difficult for you to find that type of pride when everyone around you is different. You know, they're not the same as you. I'm sorry. Did you ask a question?
No, I kind of just I agree.
Yeah.
Like, you're right.
I think. I think like as you get older, what ends up happening is that you find yourself going into these groups, because the amount of people that are going to be in your life are not the same as like in high school. In high school, you see every single like group of people. You see your entire class in different like situations and scenarios. But then when you go to college, you have to decide who's surrounding you. You know, it's not just like your class that, like the classes that you have that decides like, oh, where are you spending most of your time. So with like things like OCCM, Coptic Society in Newark, it's a great opportunity for people to be like, wait, there's so many of us, or at least it feels that way. And then that kind of changes your perspective. You're like, okay, if this is my group of people, how am I going to act? How am I going to be? And I think you start to find a little bit more pride and, you know, strength in your community when you see more of your community. Mm-hmm. You know.
Yeah. So I have a question. So, as you said, like especially East Brunswick, Maybeo, and like places that are like filled with Egyptians, why is it still so hard for us as kids to have that pride? That like I'm going to assume most of us are raised in the church. We went to preschool. You know, every Saturday, Monday we were here. But yeah, like it's so easy to just, you know, follow everyone else, even though you're surrounded by such a big community. But then it's you and your friends that are following the community, and you're not setting the standard. It's everyone else that's setting the standard, and you're just following them.
I think it's multifaceted. I think that part of it is our problem as a community. You know, we have to kind of think about, do we leave an inviting environment for everyone else around us, you know? Like when you have like cliques and like you have groups of people that really kind of ostracize others or make you feel like weird for being just slightly different from the rest of your like Egyptian friends, then if you're a little different, you're going to be like, why do I want to be here? At least in the American community, they like accept me, you know, because they accept everyone who has like differences, you know? And that's like a very dangerous thing. So what I would say is that going back to the beginning where we're saying, how do we, you know, be Coptic Christians in a non-Coptic society, you know, in an American Western culture, you have to take the best from everything. You have to take the best parts of Western culture, American culture, and utilize it. You know, one of my favorite verses from St. Paul, he says, you know, to the Jew, I am a Jew. To the Greek, I am a Greek, right? In the sense that, and then he says, I am all things to all people so that I can, you know, bring everyone to God. Right? And I butchered that last part. But I guess my point is we can't be so close-minded in our way of thinking of like what it like means to be Coptic. Like there's this specific, you know, you got to go to Tizbeha. Then after you go to Tizbeha, you go to Sunday school. And then after that, you're supposed to have these types of interests. And if you don't have those interests, then you're not really being Coptic right. And so because of that, you're being weird. Go. You know, you're not, you either come with us or you're not. I don't like that. I think that ends up taking a lot of people out of church.
Yeah.
I think we have to be very intelligent with how we approach this. You know, especially now, you guys being in college, there's a lot of power in your hands now, and you guys aren't kids anymore. It's difficult to tell a fifth grader that you can't ostracize people, right? But right now, you guys as servants and you guys as just human beings and people just living day to day, you have so much power in how are people going to stay in church or not, especially after college, guys. After college, there's a huge shift where this OCCM stuff, the CS stuff, it doesn't exist anymore. So it's like, what are you connected to? You either connected to the church or you're not. You have groups of friends, like, and it has to be very purposeful. You know, if I want to see my friends, I have to like reach out to them. Like, it's not like I just walk in and, you know, and see them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's the first part. It's this idea of fixing how we approach, like, I guess, what is it to actually be Coptic, you know?
Yeah.
We can't be so close-minded.
I think it's the same thing as like what you said in the beginning. It's like it's people, sort of like a big migration of people coming from Egypt to here, and sort of that's the part where you lose those values. It's because the kids coming from Egypt and coming from outside want to conform to the kids that are here, that are born here, that are have been living here. Those are people with sort of like American values, and that's what I've noticed is that the people coming with the Egyptian values from outside, and they come in to try to make friends here, they kind of not put the values first, but rather put that they want to create a friend group, and no matter what those values are, they're gonna conform to it just to have friends. And I feel like that's the part where we have lost that connection to like our traditions and our things, because I was recently in Egypt and I've seen it's a whole different like thing. You walk into a church in Egypt, it's a whole different thing than walking into church here. It's very different. So yeah.
How do you think it's different?
I think it's different because there's like a little like more of like carefulness in terms of like being here, because people here are very careful with like church. Like they kind of make it like a routine, right? Like we said, like this is like a routine for them. They come to church, they go to Tazbeh on Saturday, there's a liturgy on Sunday morning. After liturgy, you go have breakfast, done deals. In Egypt,
Check off box.
Yeah.
it's just check off a box.
Yeah.
But in Egypt, it's kind of like a lifestyle. Like going to church is kind of like a lifestyle. They do everything through the church. Like that's why like when I went to Alexandria when we were there, you know, I saw the kids. They were playing soccer inside of the church.
Yeah.
They were eating breakfast together inside of the church. They were having school inside of the church. Everything is church. Here, it's like you have to. It's also like geographically, you have to drive to church. It's like a whole task. It's like you have to drive to church. You have to attend church. Like, now you got to drive back. Now you're hungry, so you got to go hang out. So it's like a whole. You know, it creates that like that American culture. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's actually a very beautiful way of putting it. It was really weird. So I was born here, and I never left. Like I never visited Egypt until 2022. So 22 years of my life, basically, I wasn't there. And then I went for the first time, and it was so weird because I was like, there's so many of us. I was like,
It's a breeding ground.
it was crazy. It was weird because I was like, I'm so used to just seeing, like, stepping out of church and
And
that's
it's the
it.
world, yeah.
That's the world. And it was so separated to me. It was crazy to be driving, or I wasn't driving, but I was like in a car, and like every other mile, there's a Coptic church. I was like, what? This is crazy. And I saw like similar things to what you're saying, and I think that's so beautiful. This idea that this was their entire lives. Why do we separate the two? Why do we say, this is the spiritual life, this is my work life, this is my school life? Let's not have them mixed.
Because it's all American culture here. I'm telling you, it's that it's that like that Western culture where it's like you can't have all things. It's like that's what they try to push, is that you can't have all things at once. You can't be a Christian and be something else.
Successful.
They try to separate religion from your lives, and that's the wrong thing. This is exactly what's going on here with Coptics moving to America. It's because people are kind of they're falling into that trap. It's just like, it's so weird to me, man. These people have like strict 1, 2, 3. You can have 1, 2, 3 together, but no, I'm gonna be this when I'm this. Like, you know, like a little kid. When you're a kid, you're into a certain like sports. When you grow up, you don't even like that sport anymore. Now you're into video games. After video games, now you're into whatever it is, right? So you keep moving on through those stages, but you can also carry those with you. You can carry those values with you. People here don't carry values. They just do it as like a trend, and passes on.
To add on, I also think the first thing that comes to people's head when they come from Egypt is, I need to have money. I need to raise money. I need to work so that my family, can survive. Because in America, if you don't have money, you're on the street. So I think that the priority shifts. Because now, instead of having everything in Egypt, because people have land, they have their families, like you said, their lives were in Egypt. So they come here alone. The first priority is now make money and make it suitable for my family. And then I think church becomes the second option. Now I need to make sure that, I'm spiritually like filled, and then my kids will become spiritually filled. But I think the what is it called, the chain reaction happens, migrating from Egypt, and they lose the vision, they lose the life of being in the church.
Yeah, the way my parents describe it, especially being first generation Egyptians in America, it's like you touch down in America, it's like the Hunger Games,
They need to go.
That is
it's
true.
so chaotic.
Yeah.
Compared like Egypt, their life is so comfortable, so they go from especially also because in Egypt it's Arabic, and when you come to America, it's not like you can speak Arabic to everyone you see. You have to learn a new language, new currency. Everything is different. It's just hard to adapt.
My dad tells me people in America are surviving; they're not living. That's why he doesn't want to move to America. My dad's actually still back. He's not coming here because he's like, people there are surviving, and they're not living, and it's probably a better idea to live than to survive. So that's true.
I think first of all, this is dangerous because I'm talking. I could get into a million tangents right now.
This is his specialty.
You guys are getting so many things in my head. The money thing. I think the way that we handle money, or the way that we think about money as Coptic Christians, there's a little bit of culture in that, and I think it's dangerous. I think that we don't talk enough about the danger of love of money. I think that a lot of our culture just tends to act like it's okay for us to be kind of seeking worldly things as our priority. As long as God is kind of just mixed in there, and it's no, God told us to forsake the world, and not in the sense that you can't have any good things, but
Shouldn't be the priority.
It really needs to be that your heart is detached from it.
Yeah.
Your heart needs to be fully detached from it. God has used many people who make a lot of money, and then God has used many people who don't. But the idea is that I'm willing to be whatever place that God wants me to be his vessel. I think a beautiful prayer that I think is really interesting to pray sometimes is when you're trying to, you're hungry for success and you want to be successful, especially as college youth. Ask that God only give you continue to give you success unless it will interfere with your salvation. If at any point having more success or money or whatever will interfere with your salvation, you ask God not to give it to you. because what's more important? This life is so short. And I think that's the whole point of this entire thing. It's like we have to like kind of think about like we're in a race. You're right. We're in a Hunger Games, right? It's a race, but a race of how can I attain my salvation and how can I bring as many people with me. And the reason I really wanted to talk about this topic in the first place is that I feel like we're in a very unique position as Coptic Christians. Isaiah 19, it's the one that talks about Egypt. We love that verse. Blessed be my people, Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. It says somewhere in there, in that day, there will be an altar to the Lord in Egypt. And like almost like a light, a haven. That prophecy, according to the fathers, is also associated with Christ entering into Egypt, right? But I think that there are a couple times where you see a prophecy kind of mentioned, and it has a little bit of, it points towards something else too. It points to multiple things, right? And I mean, I'm not claiming anything about the prophecy, so that this is not a heresy, and you guys take me off here.
Canceled.
Yeah. But I will say that we are one of the only churches in the world that still follows exactly as it was created.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I've talked to people who are seeking Christianity, and they talk about the way that the Orthodox Church, something's different about it. Something's beautiful about it. A lot of the other faiths in Christianity are either diluted, like the actual faith is diluted, or the people are diluted. And my fear is that we, coming out of Egypt as Orthodox Christians in, the diaspora in America, are slowly diluting and becoming like everything else around us, everyone else around us. Yeah. And then if that happens, what's left? Even the other Orthodox churches. I was talking to this one Greek Orthodox priest. He like ran into me and another one of the youth here, and he was saying, "How do you guys have so much youth?" He's like, "The youngest person in my church is like 50 years old." And I was talking to another guy in medicine, like, and he's also Orthodox, but he's not Coptic Orthodox, and he's like, I can't find anyone who shares my faith with me. I try to go to church, there's nobody there. So it's like, okay, I don't know the reason necessarily that the youth. I mean, I think part of that is Pope Shenouda and how he handled it, and he thought that the future of the church is the youth, but we can't mess this up. This is a dangerous time. We can go two ways. Our faith can die, and we can become diluted, and then your kids can just be like everyone else, who just like, oh yeah, I'm actually like, yeah, I'm Christian. I don't really practice though. Like, do you want that to happen? No, we got to stop that. And so I think that's why we need to talk about this as a community, and we need to figure out how do we keep ourselves strong now that we've left Egypt. Now that not only have we left Egypt, but society has invaded our brains with social media and with every single thing, just like you can bring the world home to you. And you have access to all these different ideas. And I mean, again, I can go on so many tangents.
Yeah. But I think I want to know what you think, because you just asked the question, how do we keep ourselves strong as a religion and as a faith? Like, what do you think? How do you think we can keep strong? If there is, anyway.
Yo.
Like, it's inevitable, like...
No, it's not inevitable. It's not. But it takes discipline. It takes purposefulness. You have to be purposeful. You can't let the world toss you. You can be like... Oh, how old were you the first time you ever went into the ocean?
Ocean?
Yeah.
Okay, like,
I think we went to the ocean like last year.
First time ever?
No.
I do not.
Mina doesn't do water.
Not a fan of water.
I remember when I was a kid,
Yeah, really?
my dad took me I was so afraid of the ocean because I used to think it could just like take you. You know, I used to think I would always just be sucked in by it.
It can.
Mina's like, yes. And the reason I mention it is because we can be like a little kid who's tossed in the ocean, just like, you know, like you're barely like getting by, you know, the next wave comes and you're just like you get crashed back in. Or you can be like firm, like a rock, right? And you have to be purposeful. It doesn't just happen. You can't just be a Christian and then see what happens. No, every single day needs to be, my purpose on this earth is to be an Orthodox Christian in a non-Orthodox society so that other people can see God. Orthodoxy means firm, straight, strong. So, I mean, that happens with discipline. You know, so, you know, we talk about all these different things that you have to, like, you do to be a Christian, but, like, I think, like, in order to be a light to other people, you just need to take care of your own spiritual life. That's it. That's all it requires. And then God opens up doors when it happens. And you can't be ashamed of your faith, right? You need to be proud of it. You know, I think for me, like, for example, whenever I have any opportunity to mention that I'm Coptic, I do. I'm talking to someone, yeah, like I could be talking to like a doctor, someone in my professional life, you know, and something will come up, and you know, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm Coptic. Have you ever heard of Coptic? They're like, oh yeah, we've heard of Coptic. You're like a Christian Egyptian? I'm like, yeah, you know, and you'd be surprised how many people know Christian Egyptians and like Coptic Orthodox, you know. But like also, like as I said, you have to be able to not be tossed. So the way that you're not tossed is that you actually need to maintain like an actual disciplined lifestyle. So that includes in spiritual, like in what you'd quote spiritual things and non-spiritual things. And I think it's really hard. I'm curious to see, like, I mean, like, what do you guys imagine it means to be like disciplined in your everyday life?
Yeah. You guys can answer that, but like from what you said, like you're saying it, like the way you say it makes it sound like way easier said than done. Like you're saying, like be disciplined, like it's like a everyday like struggle, obviously. But sometimes, speaking about myself, sometimes I'm sitting there, I don't even feel the need to be disciplined about it, to be struggled, to even like care. So like I think it's, for me personally, it's a little hard sometimes to even find a reason to be disciplined, because I feel like since the faith has been around for so long, and obviously before we even had this conversation, I wasn't like concerned about like my faith or culture being altered in any way, I guess. So sometimes I just feel like I don't really have like the need to be disciplined. But what did you guys think from the question he asked?
I feel like most people are not aware that they need to be disciplined, and that's like something that's going on with Crass. I feel like it's because it's like
I'm not like sick, like
no. It's like no. It's like it's a whole thing with like the culture here. It's that like you're not constantly, you're comfortable. You have to be driven. I'm talking to like in general.
No,
I'm not talking to Crass.
100%.
But people are comfortable and they're not driven, and that's why they don't feel like they need to be disciplined.
Driven for what though?
Like you have to be driven for like a certain thing that you achieve, like that you want to achieve.
Well, what is it though?
So it's a goal. It's like you have a goal, you want to achieve that goal, but then in order to get to that goal, there's a billion other people that want that goal, but you just have to be disciplined enough to beat them all to get there. And that's what discipline is, like your kind of weapon to getting to a certain area. It's the way that it's going to guide you. It's like your GPS. If you're not disciplined to go through all the hard stuff, you're going to be just like the billion other people that want to get to that goal. You know what I mean?
So I think like the way that I imagine discipline. Okay, so like for example, what you're saying, like having a goal. What I'm trying to say is that the actual goal, like what the goal is actually extremely important. There are plenty of people who are driven goal-oriented driven people in Western culture. And their goal is success. It's a beautiful life here on earth, you know? And so I think like something that we have to be careful about is not making that our main goal, you know? I think our goal needs to be literally, how can I maintain a good Orthodox Christian life so that I can be a light to others, you know? How can I do that? I think like you were saying something. You were saying how it was. It's like sometimes it's a lot easier said than done. It's very difficult for us to kind of just like live like a disciplined life. I think first, like what George was saying, like you need, like the first thing that you need is to know that this is necessary, you know. Like this is not something that's haphazard. I need to try to do this, okay? Because if I don't, my entire life kind of ends up just like useless.
Yeah,
you know?
no purpose in your life.
No purpose, right? And then the second thing now is how do you do it? I think.
Yeah, because it is a little hard to get like the first foot in the door. Like how do you start?
I think the best thing explanation to this is just to look around you. Take a look at the saints that were disciplined enough in this room. You know, like if you look around.
Sorry, not even like I want to give an example when you're talking about like disciplined people. So I know someone personally who like so he's a lot older now, but like when he was like our age, 16 to 15 to 20 actually, like he would tell me like every single day he would get up, like do his morning prayers, like Akbaya prayers, always make sure that he spoke to God, and then he would go to school, then like go to church, do his services. But like when he was explaining to me his routine, it was like you can tell it wasn't like just a check off box. Like he enjoyed waking up to pray to God. He enjoyed reading the Psalms. He enjoyed like doing the action. It wasn't something just like okay, I have to get up now and my alarm is ringing. It's like he would naturally wake up just to pray to God. And it became so infused with him that like even in church and in his services, like it's like this is a Christ-like man. Because like everything he was doing, it was like he was doing it because of the fact that he loved God, and that's what like pushed him to do. That's what like made him have such a perfect, be such a perfect person in service. Because it wasn't like, okay, like I have a goal, I want more kids to come, so I'm gonna put on a show, or I'm gonna be lenient in class, or I'm not gonna care about what kids say. Like no, his goal was, how do I get these kids to heaven? So because that was his goal, and he was very like disciplined in having that relationship with God. Number one, make sure that he was filled first. Then everyone saw and was like, wow, like this man, he's not like a normal person. He's not someone else just sitting here like here to be here.
I'm with you, but I think the only thing that I'll say is that doesn't happen right away. And I think, it's not just that it doesn't happen right away, but I think actually what's beautiful about discipline is that you do it even when you don't want to.
100%. But that's what I'm saying. It took him from like he started when he was 15, all the way till he was like, even now he still does it.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a way of, obviously I'm sure it was a struggle and he had his moments, but it was that constant need of like getting up every morning and like willing, like he loved to do it. It was a passion. It wasn't just a check off a box. Oh, I have to brush my teeth. Oh, I have to do this. It was now I get to pray to God. Now I get to read the Psalms.
But starting out, like for people who don't have those values instilled in them, like they don't have the drive to get up in the morning and be like, oh, like I'm so excited to go pray to God. Like obviously having that feeling in his heart and constantly drilling in that routine is what made him disciplined.
Yeah.
But back to our point before, getting that first foot in the door and you don't have that feeling, like it feels near impossible.
Go ahead.
I think one of the good things our Coptic church like does for us is our spiritual canons. I think that's one of the major things that helped me like get some sort of like discipline in my life, because it basically forces you, like no matter what happens in your day, no matter like if you're upset, no matter if you even like you're feeling like praying, there's a set of rules or set of actions that you need to do, no matter like what it is. So I think at a young age, especially when you don't have any responsibilities, if you're not in college yet, like there's nothing you have to be really like
concerned about.
Yeah, concerned about. I think a canon helps you prepare, and it personally prepared me to have that drive, to have that like need that I have to do this every single day.
Purpose.
Yeah.
I think something that is interesting is that, as I said, the spiritual life is not different from the rest of your life. They need to be combined. So when I meant what is your goal, I think your goal is communion with God at all times, with whatever you're doing. You know, there's a book, it's called The Practice of the Presence of God by by Brother Lawrence. He was a Catholic monk, right? And like the big thing that he mentions, it's a very short book. I recommend everyone read it. It's really short, really easy read.
What's the title again?
Practice of the Presence of God. And like something that he says is like, you know, people think that they need to do some grand gesture for God, you know? No, all you need to do is when you're washing the dishes, pray and do it for God. You know, every action that you do becomes for God. When you're a student, are you studying so that you can be successful? Or are you studying so that you can be faithful to God? I'll give you a story. When I was a kid, I like studied really hard for some like exam or something, and I didn't do well on it. And my dad, I was really upset. And so my dad came up to me and he was like, "You can't study for the sake of getting a good grade. You need to study so that you can be faithful with the gifts that God gave you. Then you take whatever work that you did, you put it in God's hands, and he can bless it like the 5 loaves and 2 fish in the way that he wants to bless it. So it might not be with a good grade. It might be with something else. But God doesn't forget your sweat, your tears, your whatever that you forgot, that you shed 5 years ago when you were doing your work. You know, he doesn't forget that. So the idea is he involved in my everyday life? You know, when you're walking to an exam, I felt like I really felt this when in grad school, because, you know, you're everything in your life starts to become surrounded around school. Like there was literally no time for anything else, right? And so when you're in this process, it's like, it's either God's with me here or he's not going to be there, you know? Yeah, like we can pray the spiritual canons, but there are some times that you're like staying up all night or whatever, you're doing work, you're working really like, or like, for example, when I was like on rotation, sometimes I'd be like, you know, it'd be like 24-hour shifts and whatever, and you're not going to necessarily step out and do your spiritual canons. But when I'm doing this task, am I praying? When I'm doing this task, am I talking to God? Am I involving him? When you're talking to this one person, are you telling God, please, like, actually put the words in my mouth so that I affect this person? When I'm walking on the street, do I do that? You know? And then that's what a relationship is. You're involving your friend. You're involving your father. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm trying to say is the way that you wire your brain about how you look at life is how you're going to end up being like, okay, like if you want to discipline yourself, if you're thinking about this not in the sense of like, oh, okay, why am I going to do this? Because you need the motivation. You got to be like, I'm doing this so that I can be faithful. So that when I die, God is going to look at me and he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. You know, that's the words, those are the precious words that you want to hear. You know, and that's why you do things. I think if you have that mindset, you start looking at life differently. You know what I mean?
100%. That's awesome. I really like the part that you said about like your story about studying, where you do like your blood, sweat, and tears, put it in the hands of God, and he blesses it however he wants to bless it. That's awesome.
Yeah, because there are going to be exams that you don't do well on. There are going to be exams that you did well on that you didn't deserve to do well on. Trust me, I felt that one a lot. You know, I was like, really? Okay. and then I had the other, and then I had the other feeling too. You know, you get both in your life, but
the other one's more often. The other one's definitely more often.
But yeah, I think my point is if you have that mindset, then you're gonna start approaching life differently. You have to think about things like, I have a short time here. I can look at it in the sense of like, I'm gonna be disciplined with everything in my life, not just my spiritual canons. You know what I'm saying too is like, for example, like the way that we approach even like our physical health or the way that we approach our sleep. This one is bad on my part. Like I really suck with like maintaining a good sleep schedule, and like that's something that I've been trying to fix recently because that affects everything else. You know, if you don't have a good sleep schedule, then you'll go to late to liturgy. You know, and like all of these things, God is asking you to be faithful with all of them, not just this one portion of your life. God is not God of 10% of your life. He's God of 100% of your life. Okay? And so that's how you need to look at life. And I think with discipline too, like a key thing is switching your perspective. You need to think about things as like, okay, I want to do this because I know it's good for me. I know that overall I will be happier. You know, like if you notice anything that's bad for you feels like you feel it like later, always. Like you start to realize like, okay, like this thing is not good for me. Having a poor sleep schedule, having a lack of discipline in your life negatively affects you. And what that ends up being is like you're like that little kid who's just getting tossed by the world. Whatever happens to it, whatever urge I'm feeling as somebody who just follows whatever my flesh wants, I just do it. You know, you can't live that way, because if you're just following whatever your flesh wants, you're nothing better than an animal.
Mix that with a free society, and you're cooked.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just you're literally destroyed. That's the only way to say it.
You're cooked.
Yeah, because
Stow it.
at the end of the day,
What are you saying?
Stow it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like we basically, and that's exactly, by the way, what Western society teaches us. It teaches us that it's like, you know, my truth, what's important to me, right? And like you can't be. This is not how we're supposed to be, because that's the beautiful thing that God created about man. Man is different from animal. Why is man different from animal? Because he has willpower. He has the ability to consciously think and be like, this is not good for me, so I'm not going to listen to my body. You know? And so when you start to do this, you start to feel good long term. You start to feel like, okay, this is important for my time here on earth. And when you think of your life as a very short amount of time on earth, because you never know, like mortality is actually a gift, because in a sense, it's a way of realizing, hey, I only have a short period of time to do what I need to do. So now you're not going to take your time for granted. Every time you're sitting, just like you're sitting on your butt and you're just like watching TV, you're going to be thinking, what if this is my last day? Is this really what I wanted to be like doing, right? But then when you're doing something disciplined, you know, and you're taking care of how you're actually supposed to approach like your day to day, then it's purposeful. Then you're like, you know, by the end of the day, you feel good. You're like, you know what? I accomplished today's work. If today's my last day, even though I studied and that might have not been the most fun thing, you know what? God is going to reward me tomorrow in heaven. You know? Mm-hmm. It's just a different mindset.
Yeah.
That's what discipline is. It's about like seeing that, okay, now I'm in a very uncomfortable position, but in just down the line, just give it a minute, it's gonna happen. Then it's gonna be good, and it's gonna be beneficial.
I think I agree with you. And I think the key difference though, like that you really need to emphasize on, is that this thing that hurts right now, it's like actually, maybe it's not hurting. Like maybe this is actually sweet. Like this is like, I'm feeling alive now. I'm feeling like I'm actually doing something useful with my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think like you need to actually enjoy. This is not supposed to be sadistic, but like you kind of have to enjoy the pain. You know.
Yeah. That's
Enjoy the
how
process.
you persevere. It's literally it's perseverance. You go through the pain.
Yeah, you kind of smile at it. You know, you're like, okay, let's see what we're gonna do today. You know, you have 10 hours of studying to do today. All right, let's see what we're gonna do.
Let's get it.
You know, it's make it a game. Make it a little bit of a game. You know, you can kind of gamify life a little bit. I mean, some of this stuff, by the way, I know it's not necessarily what you'd expect in a spiritual sense, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like, we as Coptic people, we're in a very unique opportunity to take what, you know, the knowledge of the Western world and science and all these things, and kind of mix it into our spiritual life, so that we maintain a strong spiritual life. You know, because our goal is to maintain the spirituality more than anything. You know, we have to maintain our relationship with God and the things that He gave us and our fathers gave us. I'm not saying that we just take like literally every single aspect of being Egyptian and just like that's what it means to be a Coptic person. You can't change from that. That's not what I'm saying. Because slowly, like, even the languages, they change. But did the spirituality change? You know, when Coptic became banned and Arabic became the language of Egypt, did the spirituality change? No.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony, for coming on such short notice. We really enjoyed our time. Why are you laughing? Honestly, we're so thankful that you could have came on such short notice.
Thank
and
you.
Had this
Thanksgiving
conversation with
weekend.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Any heavy hitters that you want to leave us with before we go? Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, not really. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, like, I don't know. I think. Go ahead.
I think because this is not like a like a lot of the youth are not thinking about this right now. So like, what would you say to someone that like this is the first time hearing about this topic? What would you want them to like walk away with?
Be proud of the fact that you're a one in a million. You know, you're here. You're living in America. You know, our fathers died so that you can have your faith. Like, you know, back then it was either you died, you converted, or you paid a tax. And, you know, we were fortunate enough, or our ancestors were fortunate enough to, looks like, I mean, I think they paid the tax because we're here, right? And so now you're not under persecution. You're here in America, and you have all this freedom. And it's like, what are you going to do with this freedom? The beauty of discipline is that you're basically saying, I'm going to actually control my freedom. I'm not going to be washed up by this world, you know? And so be proud of the fact that you're a Coptic Christian. Be excited to share it with people. And the way that you end up really sharing it with people is not by going out and preaching on the streets, but just being someone so different and so purposeful and so amazing in your own sense that people are just like, who are you? You know? When you're successful with your worldly things, in the sense of your school and stuff, people will look up to you, and then they'll want to know everything about you. And if they realize that the core reason is because of your faith, that says something about our faith, and that's the beautiful thing. And don't let our orthodoxy die. You know, like we have to do that together. That includes being very inclusive to people. You know, keep the spirituality, but don't exclude people because they're a little different, you know?
Thank you, Tony. So before we go, obviously, you know what we have to do. We have to plug our socials. We have our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Spotify, SoundCloud. At this point, I might just wipe the Spotify and SoundCloud from the social picture that's on the screen right now. But I promise.
Season two.
No, by the end of the season, they'll be uploaded.
By the end of the season or very soon, George, we're going to delegate George to do our audio and podcasts. So we're going to really try. Sorry about that. But if you made it this far, in the episode, especially on Thanksgiving, because it's going to be most likely released tomorrow. If you made it this far on Thanksgiving, fair play to you. I know you guys are all very busy. We're all very busy, and we really appreciate everyone that's coming to watch. You know, letting us know. And you have something to say? Or?
We're most likely gonna have a Q&A for our last episode, so we'll release a forum. I think before the next episode drops, not this one, the one after. So if you have any questions or questions you want the speaker to talk about, then please put in the form.
If you have any questions, obviously we already have our suggestions form. You can leave that. I don't know if you guys made it this far on the video to hear this, but you can go on the link in the description to ask questions.
Did I bore everyone? You know?
No.
You're good, man.
But you can ask questions on that link, but we're definitely going to go onto our Instagram and Yeah, definitely the Instagram. On the story and post our little like anonymous link to have questions asked there too. So any way you want to reach us, DM us, go to the links either on Instagram or in the description. We can do the Q&A. Before we go, we're good. Good. I'm good?
Yeah, we're chill.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been Anthony,
Mark.
Mina.
George.
and we're joined with
Tony.
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 Peace. And thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.